Welcome to the Tuesday Flip Trader podcast. I'm your host, Ian. And, every week you're now used to it, I hope. Or if you're new here, welcome. You're now used to the fact that every Tuesday we bring on somebody who has an expertise in the real estate investing world. And today, my guest, Chris Benedict, who's a great friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a long time. I'm really excited to bring him on because this is the kind of guy that you want in your friend group. And speaking of that, Chris, we have to talk more. So I'm putting it out there to everybody. We have to talk more often because you're that guy that I know you're going to be real and raw with me. I'm going to be real and open and very authentic with you. And we're going to have a really cool conversation. We're going to ADD out all over the place around real estate, family, all kinds of stuff. And it's fun. So I was looking at your bio. I really want the audience to know, like, the level of leader that I feel you are. I mean, you're proven in the market too. Like the level of leader that I feel you are, and you've always just been such a kind person. Whenever I've met you in person, whenever I've talked to you on the phone, I always know that there's no judgment, that there's no like walls up, there's no animosity, there's no bullshit. It's just real, simple, clear conversation. And that's what I'm so excited about, is to share the type of conversations that we have in the real estate investing space together with our audience. And I think that's going to be really fun. So I'm going to read Chris's bio real quick, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling here. So you know that you have invested your time wisely today. So Chris is what I feel is the definition of heart-led leadership. I added that to his bio. So like, I think that's what explains who Chris is, heart-led leadership. And it's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to have Chris on the podcast. Like I said, besides his fantastic career in real estate, as an agent, as a broker, as a property manager, he's just an amazing guy who you want to be around. And his businesses have reflected that. And since 1997, the roots for all things big began when Chris started his career in real estate, sales, investments, and management, and quickly found his love for leadership. Chris is also known as the big guy. And he's one of those knucklehead, nutty people that you want to have in your life. Chris has been a real estate broker and owner for many years, growing his franchises and management business to impressive heights. And he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he thinks that you shouldn't either. Chris is the author of You Suck, Now Own It, a self-help book with a humorous reminder that life is short, life is simple, life is sweet, so you might as well enjoy the ride. He's a lifelong native of PA. He lives in Orlando, Florida with his wife, Stephanie, who's also his business partner, and their 3 kids. And that's it. That's a great resume, man. I love it.
It's a life
Let's jump in.
Well, first of all, Ian, thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it. I do love talking to people. I love sharing my life wisdom. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I think I've done a pretty good job of navigating these turbulent waters these last 20 some years in the real estate industry. There's been some ups and downs, and it's just so easy to get caught up in so many things and comparison issues. And, and I've learned a lot, and you are correct. If you meet me, if you're the kind of person within a room, like there's no like trying to get to know you so I can see where do you fit in and what can I pitch or sell. Like I genuinely interested in people. I live off of being around people. That's just who I am. So a genuine people person. I like to bring out the best in people. If I can, I'm not always able to do that, but certainly you and I do need to talk more often. It has been a crazy couple of years, but again, thank you for having me on, and I'm happy to answer any questions and talk about my life and how I can share value to your audience.
Of course, man. So, dude, I think I want to start with that. I want to go back so the audience can get to know your past, how you got started, but also I really want to talk about that comparison piece. I was talking to my cousin yesterday about this, and I said, what's interesting is if you lived in the middle of nowhere, and no people around you, and, miles and miles of land between you, like you don't have as much than in like a big city or a major metropolitan. And then with social media, everybody looks like they're doing better, or everybody looks like they got more, or everybody looks like this. And I think that most of us know that most of that isn't real. However, we tend to somehow our brain believes that it's real and that we're inferior in some capacity. And I mean, I've been through that. You've been through that. I mean, I've been through some dark days.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm really beating myself up going, I mean, I'm smart. What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I figure that out? Why can't I do this like those guys can? Why are they making money at that level and I'm not there yet? You know, it's so dangerous. I think, tell me your opinion. I think it's the most dangerous thing to do in your life is to compare yourself to others.
It's absolutely destructive. And I talk about this all the time. I've been fortunate to do a little bit of travel, not a huge world traveler, but I've been to Europe and to Asia, and I've been to parts of Central South America. And the reality is, like, you know, when you really go look at how other people live and the struggles they're going through, and then you come back, you do feel guilty about complaining about where you haven't achieved.
Sure.
And as I said, only in America, or if you're Canadian, only in America, though, if I'm speaking from my own experience, can you live better than 99% of the planet and feel like you're a complete loser that you haven't done enough.
Yeah.
And so what is, you know, and so, you know, I'm 51 years old. And I got to tell you, the benefit I have is I've kind of crossed over the threshold of pre-internet, inter-internet, and now where we are in full internet. And I've gone and seen this gamut. And social media, the internet has been both a blessing and a curse. And social media has probably been the worst thing for people's mental health. Not because it's not that there's not value in it, but it's that constant comparison. And you are absolutely correct. Why am I not here? Why am I not doing enough? Well, first of all, and I'm looking right into the camera for anyone who's watching this, like, understand this is the truth. And I'm just repeating the wisdom passed down, which is the only race you're running is the one with yourself.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
You know, so there's really no worries or point in worrying about what other people are doing. The second thing I will tell you this, I learned this in my 40s, and I hope that other people learn this younger, don't have to wait as long, is that there is no possession that you will ever own that's going to bring you happiness.
No.
And that once I was freed of the idea of, like, when I have a certain car, when I have a certain watch, I have a certain house, none of that means anything. And then to follow your third point is it's all fugazi. It's all made up. None of it's real. It's all show and go. And when you strip off the makeup, if you strip off the filters, you strip off the fancy clothes and cars, we're all just organic beings just trying to make our way in this world. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think when I turned 40, I really let go of so much. I was able to, and I encourage and challenge people who are younger to start to go down this road sooner than 40. I mean, for me, it was 40. For other people, it's never. For some people, it's 25. Not most, some. And I feel like I finally said, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks anymore. I just don't. And I don't think I want to spend my 40s doing that. I think I spent my 30s letting money be a driver and success be a driver of my identity and who I was. And I allowed the external influences to influence my internal. And I don't think I lived in alignment. And I think I was really angry about that. And I think I lost a lot of great relationships because of it. I think I lost a lot of time because of it. And I just made myself this promise on my 40th birthday. I said, it's over. Like that period of my life is now over. My 40s will be the best that it's ever been, because now, you know, if you have that gap and gain conversation, now I will apply everything that I have now learned fully. I'll fully apply it. I'm not going to choose and pick and choose. Chandler Sane, 24-year-old kid doing amazing wholesale business, said this so well. He said, I do what's required of me when I make a commitment, not what I feel like doing. Because what I feel like doing is like my emotions, my fear, my insecurities. But what I'm required to do is what I hold true to. And that is so damn good, man. And it sounds like you and I are on that same path of, I just don't give a shit what people think anymore. And it's not that I'm going to go out and do stupid stuff because I don't care. I still have a lot of compassion and empathy for people. However, I don't care what I wear. I don't care what you think about that. I don't care what I drive. I don't care what you think about that. You know, like, I'm a car guy, so I like cool cars, but I don't care what you think. And I catch myself sometimes Like I was going to go up to this car show on Saturday morning, which I like cars a lot. I love cars. I'm a huge car guy. And I was like, I'm going to drive this car up there. And literally my brain went, so you can be that guy. And I was like, I'm not driving that car up there. I'm going to drive my wife's Volvo up there because I didn't want to be the identity of that guy in that car. I didn't want to go there to prove something to somebody. I just wanted to go and look at cool cars. I didn't wind up going, but I have those conversations with myself. Do you ever do that?
Oh, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have possessions or they shouldn't want certain things. I think what it comes down to is there's two. I love cars too. I'm a car guy, but I also understand it comes off most likely off of a factory. And, in the end, I'm the kind of guy, there's two kinds of car owners. I don't know which one you are. There's it's my baby. It's my possession. I wipe it with a diaper. No one's allowed to touch it. And, and it becomes a control. It actually ends up controlling you because you can't walk away from it.
Right.
Or you got the guy like me, which is I toss the keys. Hey man, have fun. It's got insurance. It's a toy. If something happens, God forbid, I'm going to be more worried about you than the car itself, because I know in this day and age, a tow truck can come and in an hour I can have it taken away and a new one can be brought to me if it's really that important to me.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by like, there's nothing wrong with it. You are correct. It's what is the image you're trying to portray? Yeah. And I think that's where we've really messed up as a society. And I am a positive guy, so I don't want this to come across as a negative. It's just that, when we start thinking about being that guy, or we start, especially men in their 20s and 30s, if they're single, like there's this, you want to peacock, you want to show that you're successful and all those things. But the reality is like, why? What are you trying to attract in your life? Do you really want to attract people who are there for your possessions? Or do you want to attract people who are there for the light that you give? And I think that's the struggle our up and coming generations are having, is they've been painted this idea that the image they project is going to be what's going to get them happiness. And the reality is, who is it? Oprah said, everybody wants to be in the back of the limo with you, but nobody wants to ride in the back of the bus when the limo breaks down.
Right.
And I've always thought, right. And that's the truth. Like, the people that you want in your life are going to be the people who are there when you have nothing, or technically if you think you are nothing. Fame, fortune, God, it's also fickle. It's fickle.
If you don't know, what I found was that money and success for me, like I said earlier, was this identity. And it was helping me not have to deal with as much fear in my life. I didn't have to deal with certain people. I was the owner of the business, so I didn't really have to do a lot of the grunt work anymore that I did when I built the business or started it. I drove a certain car, so I fit into a certain group, and I got these awards, so people looked at me differently, and my clients saw me this way. And I think most of my 30s, all my up till 40 years old, I think I was lost at who I was. I was trying to find him, but there's this exoskeleton that I was wearing as a real estate agent, as a real estate investor, that, the amount of properties that I owned, the amount of sales that my team did, the amount of people on my team, the amount of blah, 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 awards that I've gotten, that all started filling my cup way too much. And then when I wanted to change, I felt locked in. I felt trapped. And, this is an important conversation for everybody to listen up to, because I built a real estate portfolio in the beginning to fit in, because it was the right thing to do. It's the thing that you do next. You got some money coming over here. Now you build this over here. And the circles I ran in, everybody was doing the same thing. We're building our real estate portfolios. We're building passive income. We're building this. We're building wealth. And I was just going through these motions. I was smart. I knew about real estate investing. I knew about the market. I'm good. Why shouldn't I just invest? Why shouldn't I just go do this? And the answer is because it wasn't authentic. It wasn't pure. Like, yeah, should I be investing in real estate? Yes. However, why I was buying the certain properties I was buying, where I was buying, and when I was buying, and how I was doing it, that's what wasn't aligned. That wasn't authentic. I was doing it to prove something. I was doing it to prove my value. And so this is a really important conversation for people in our group, in our Flip Trader group, to understand this might be you, and you might need to hear this today.
Listen, absolutely. It's without a doubt. I did watch a lot of my colleagues in the last 5 or 6 years jumping left and right into syndication. And, I'm a little bit more of a cautious guy. As I said, I'm in my 50s in the last 18 months. And, I was that people pleaser all through my 30s and 40s, and realizing that, people will use that to their advantage. Yeah. It's manipulation. And what happened was I had to take a deep breath and to stand back and went through the same thing. Like, well, why do I want to do this syndication? Why do I want to get into this real estate? And what I was doing was trading an investment for more involvement. I mean, unless you are stacked with cash and you can go out and put 20, 30% down on a multifamily building, you're going to have to raise capital. Well, if you raise capital, that means you've got people who are expecting things from you. If you have people that are expecting things from you, you can't just walk away. And, right. and listen, if there's any advice I give, and I'm raising, my son is 20 and I have twin 16-year-old daughters that are juniors in high school now. And I'm starting to see the tail end of being a parent. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel where, my wife and I, we're going to be freed up from some of these obligations. I mean, life changes that way. I went through this, where I was networking with a lot of people 10 to 15 years younger than me. And there was a lot of jealousy on my part because they were able to take risks and get involved in things that I was like, I went through the towers falling a year after I got married. And then 7, 8 years later, the market crashed and I lost real estate investments and had to start all over again from literally almost, so here I am 15 years after the market crash and I am more cautiously optimistic. I am hoping for the best, but I prepare for the worst. And I think, so here you're talking about the last 3, 4 years, everyone's scrambling. Well, guess what? Who predicted interest rates would be jumped up 4, 5, 6 points in a year? Nobody. So when you're doing these 3 to 5 year syndication deals, well, no one foresaw that. And then of course there's Murphy's Law. Right. And the same people who were making mad money, and some did very well, but there's others who are scrambling now. Yeah. And so for me, that's not to belabor the point of, it's just a matter of you, the investor, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you have a significant other. I don't know if you have any children. I don't know what your debt obligations are, but every obligation you add is going to be one more constriction for some of the risks that you're going to want to take or be able to take. And so, a younger person listening right now who's in their 20s, I would consult. I would talk to them differently than if I was consulting somebody who is in their mid 30s or 40s and they've got 2 or 3 kids. Yeah, because I'm here to say, I was that pie in the sky. It's all going to work out. Everything's because you can hustle all you want, but you can't hustle your way out of the unforeseen circumstances. No. And you can't predict the market, and here's something I talked about on my other podcasts quite a bit was be careful or be aware of who you're modeling. We talked about comparison to others, and there is a comparison that I think is okay, which is the comparison to you before. And so I enjoy, I keep all my notes and stuff on legal pads, and then I put it into my CRM. And I like looking back and seeing who I was and what I was writing and, going back in journals from a year ago. But one of the best pieces of advice I got was be careful who you model after, because most of the time we model after people based on what they have or what they do, where we really should be modeling after who somebody is. Yeah. Not what they have, or maybe subsequent who they are and then what they do. And there was a mentor of mine back in 2019 in November of 2019. And I said, hey, I'm looking at this 194 unit building. It's really amazing. 2-year IO on it. And he said to me, I'll give you one piece of great advice. Do not take on short-term debt right now. That's all I'm going to tell you. Do not take on short-term debt. Do not take on a 2-year interest-only loan that you're going to have to refi out of in 2-3 years. Do not do that. And man, the guys that went in on that deal, which I didn't, they can't get out of it. They're now at year 4
on a 2-year IO. And there's a potential that the bank is going to put it in receivership and take it. And all that investor money, all the LPs, all the GPs, all of their money gone. The bank doesn't give a shit. They want their asset. They want their money.
Yeah.
And man, I think about that. And I keep my circle very tight. I keep my standards for my mentors and my coaches very high. And if they drop them, I drop them. And I look for somebody else who maintains the standards. Not to say you can't make a mistake. I'm just saying how they live their life based on who they are as a father, a husband, a business owner, a person, a man. That's what I'm looking for. And if they've got 25 million or 25,000, doesn't really matter. It depends on what I'm modeling. If I'm modeling, I want to build wealth. I'm not looking at the guy with 25 grand in his bank account, looking at the guy with 25 million. However, if the guy with 25 million is a dick and his family hates him and all he's looking for is passive income and wealth, I'm not modeling after him. I'm just not. I might take a couple pieces of advice under consideration, but I'm not modeling.
It's such a cliche. It's been said so many times that you can't take it with you. And I think that is so important. And, I've been fortunate to be able to have children, and I thought that was what everyone was able to do. As I got older, I realized some people can't, some people financially can't, some people physically can't. And you start to become very attuned to the blessings that you have. And, when you talk about value and you talk about wealth, and this one I really started deep diving. One of a mentor that you and I both know, I chased, and followed this mentor. And this person gave me a lot of great advice for years, but I really looked back and I saw fractured relationships and fractured children and fractured business partners. And this person finally came out and said, I don't have long-term relationships. I have relationship envy. And I took a stand back. I'm thinking, here I am about to be 25 years or 23 married, 25 years with my wife and business partner. I have multiple friends that I'm in the 3 to almost 4 decade range.
Yeah.
Things that I took for granted. I've got a best friend I've known since I was 9. Doesn't everybody? And I didn't realize till I got older that that's not the case.
No.
And so if you look at the amount of love that you give and the amount of love that you receive, and you look at it from the people that you build in your network, that is going to be more valuable than any bank account you will ever have.
Yeah.
And from that, I started realizing I'm one of the wealthiest men in the world. I'm probably one of the wealthiest men who've ever lived. And I don't say that like as a brag. What I mean is, like, if you really look at it, and like, just like you got on this call, and even though we might not talk sometimes for a year or two, when you hop on, right away, it's that same instant connection because we have that same vibration. And I would 100% agree. If you're simply following the money, it will get you there. But there's that whole question that you and I were deep diving 6 years ago when we started networking, which was, what's your why?
Yeah.
What's the reason for all this? And I would say that to someone. Let's say I can write the check tomorrow and get you what you wanted. There you go. You're $1 million net worth. You're 32 years old. Congratulations. Now what?
You
got a whole life still to live ahead of you. Yeah. And let me tell you something, for every superstar we watch, as I tell people, I've been saying this for 20 years, if Mike Tyson can blow through $320 million, so can you.
Yeah.
Right? People think it's going to be forever. And so there's this idea like that somehow money, look me in the eyes, people, I'm going to say something to you right now. Money will never solve your problems. It changes your ability to do things. It gives you more opportunities, but there's not a check large enough you can write that will buy you out of your problems.
Yeah. And well, your internal problems.
Sure. That's what I mean, though. Like, I mean, okay, yes, maybe financially you can buy out of like a court hearing or something. What I mean by that is if you're going through a tough time, if you're in a dark place, no amount of money is going to solve that. And as you grow and as your net worth grows, you realize you're still the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I felt the same way about that same mentor. Same thing. I'm looking at the fractures and I'm like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of forward facing, like, surface level stuff, but as I started to get into the depth, I didn't see anything. There was no substance, and I started getting nervous about that. And then I knew I had to move on, and because I valued different things. That's it. Like, there was nothing right or wrong. I just valued different things.
Just different values.
Those groups that we were running in, I mean, I know guys today that are coaching clients of mine that got to $4 or $5 million in the last couple years net worth. big property owner, big cash flow, and they're more miserable than ever. They've hit these goals that they thought would be like this, this golden light would shine on them once their bank account hit this certain tick number, right? And this golden light would open up and champagne would start squirting, and and a yacht would pull up, and they're like, oh my God, you made it. Thank you so much for being here. And it doesn't do that. And I learned that in a hard way, that money and success was not going to buy me out of my internal fears, struggles, constrictions, restraints, and problems that I was facing in myself, in my relationship, as a father, as a business owner. It wasn't fixing my anger. It wasn't fixing my misalignment. It was just actually worse at the time, because I had to keep making it to stay, dopamine kicking and keep my dopamine up. And I knew I wasn't happy, but I didn't know how to get out of it because I had handcuffed myself, which is crazy. Yeah. Like, as a real estate investor and an agent, I had handcuffed myself, and it was very hard to move out of that, really hard. And so I built a personal development business to literally help myself and then teach other men how to help themselves. It was crazy. And I had a lot of women clients too. Like, it was crazy. I still have women clients, but like, I wonder about, I want to go back for a second, because we could, I think this is a very valuable topic, and I want to swing back to it. I just want people to understand how you got started. Because there's a lot of people on here, and I say this every time, Chris and I aren't special. There's nobody on here that I'm going to bring on that's any more special than anybody else. And they're not more talented. They're not smarter. They just have a formula that they figured out. And that's it. They got out of their own way enough to see the formula for success in their marriage or in their business or whatever it might be. So I want people to know that even if you're at starting point right now, all you need to do is just take a couple pieces of advice, because although nobody's special on here, we are top tier in the experience that we have, failures and successes. And that's why I'm bringing these type of people on. So how'd you get started? Why'd you get started in real estate? And we kind of go from there.
So as an 80s child, as someone who grew up in the 80s, our former president, who used to be more known for his New York real estate investments than being a president and a celebrity television star. Listen, I grew up in the 80s, and it was the get rich or die trying kind of boom era. And, I read Art of the Deal. I think I was like in 6th grade, and I could be wrong. It was something I read in 6th grade, but I remember it snapping in junior high. Like, I want to be in real estate investing. I want to be in real estate. And I caught the bug young. And, but I didn't grow up with parents who invested in real estate. I didn't have that network, and this was pre-internet. So I'm a graduate of, out in the real world in the mid 90s. I'm working construction because that was good money. And I did probably what most young people do, which is go out and buy their first property as a fix and flip. And from there, I learned everything you could learn in a house: electric, plumbing, tile, this was an 1885 Victorian that I rehabbed from top to bottom, but I did like 95% of it on my own, and which was great. It was a great experience, and I'd flipped a couple properties alongside that one, but I found myself completely burned out by the end of that run. And what I realized, like, well, wait a minute, holy crow, I'm doing this all myself. I have no leverage. And I think that is the sweat equity difficulty of someone who's, not making a huge amount of money and trying to make it work. You got to pay for your bills, but you've also got to do the work. And so I didn't understand the power of leverage at that young age. So I did what most people did. I started to self-doubt myself. I went back and finished my degree, got my degree at 27. Had met my wife. We were just beginning our relationship in 97. So I went and I worked for a year for CBS. I sold radio ad sales, and I was freaking miserable. That's like you talk like, well, I'm doing what everyone told me to do. Like, okay, I tried doing it with my own hands and that didn't so great. Now I'm going to go do that. And I worked that job for a year and the towers fell. My wife and I had been on a really gorgeous weekend trip down along the beach and the towers fell and we came home like we just got married. Like what maelstrom did we just like get ourselves into? And so I quit. I quit my job on Christmas Eve. Damn. And I've been unemployed ever since. So I took the time of quitting that job and I went and got my real estate license because I'm like, okay, well, if I'm involved in real estate, I should get a real estate license. And that was a whole nother ball. So I spent the 2002 to 2008 learning the ins and outs of real estate sales. And again, internet just starting. Right. Like you have to understand when I was writing agreements of sale in the early 2000s, they were triplicate paper, fax machines. Exactly. So, but I knew this. I had a brother who is 15 years younger than me. And that kept me on top of technology trends. And I do thank him for being in my life for that because it really kept me focused on where's the next generation going. Yeah. And I would say it's very important. Always be looking 10 to 15 years behind you. What are the kids looking at? What apps are they on? What tools are they using? So I got out there in the real world, started selling real estate, and I traded a paycheck. I went from the E quadrant, if you know the 4 quadrants, to the SE. Yep. I'm now in the self-employed quadrant. Hadn't really understood the whole 4 quadrants at this point. And was selling real estate, growing, making 6 figures now, living a pretty good life. And I had 6 months worth of income in the pipeline. Amazing. I was going to sell my first double-sided for dual agents. That means you're selling both sides, which is an even fatter paycheck. It was like a $1.2 million property, which back in the early 2000s actually meant something. In California, that's a starter home. But I remember in October of 2008, the stock market took a giant dump, if you guys remember. And within that week, every deal I had in the pipeline, they backed out.
Cool.
So no fault of my own. Market crashes. I lose all my real estate. I got a wife. I got a 4-year-old. I got twin 1-year-olds. And I got no money coming in.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention that my wife decided when the kids were about 3 or 4 months old, she didn't want to be away from them. She wanted to be home. She's like, I want what you have. I want to work from home. I want to be there for our kids. So we got 2 licensees in a declining real estate market with no insurance, no income. And we had just bought a house the year before, about a year and a half before. So I went bankrupt, and I used to be very ashamed to share that information. I'm not anymore because it is what it is. I got caught in the proverbial trap. Yeah. I thought it would only get better, right? Interest rates were great. Sales were great. This is never going to end. And through no fault of my own, but I'll tell you this, it was the greatest thing to happen to me in my business world. And here's why. Because what I did was it gave me a moment to step back and sit down with my wife and go, okay, we need to build a better mousetrap.
Right.
These sales aren't going to do it. And I need something more predictable that's going to work while I don't. And yes, at this point, trying to invest in real estate, I had multiple properties. So that wasn't going to get me out of it because now those interest rates were ballooning. And it just was a big world of mess. But here's what happened. I was managing for a couple friends and family some units. And I remember joking like, hey, it was like 397 or 380. It was either 387 or 397 a month. But I joked, I'm like, that pays for our 1 car payment.
Yeah.
I was like, what if we go get a couple more units to manage and that'll pay for our other car payment? Yeah. And then at least we'll have the pressure of the car payments. And that's what we did. And my wife, who unfortunately is not feeling well, otherwise I'd poke her on the camera real quick. She got to work and I was doing Craigslist looking, because remember, this is all new. I have no blueprint to go off of other than I think I've discovered something here. And Stephanie went on Craigslist and found an HOA looking for a new property manager. And we picked up that client and we'd have them for the next 13 years.
Wow.
And that was it. We were off to the races. And within 18 months, we were making more money in management than we were in sales. And I remember, I think it was, and I don't want, it doesn't matter what year it was. It was right around 2010, I believe it was, right before the stroke of midnight. I looked at my wife and I was like, for the first time in almost 9 years of selling real estate, if I don't contract one person this year, I already can tell you what we're going to make this year.
Oh yeah. You had reoccurring, which is awesome.
It's 2023. I have clients that I've had for 14, 15 years at this point that I picked up that long ago. That's cash flow. So what happened was we got into the management side of the business. We grew that, but we learned a lot of hard knocks. We got abused by a lot of crappy landlords. We took on properties that were low income and housing voucher and outside of areas we wanted to be in. But when you're young and hungry and you got kids to feed, you do it.
Do whatever.
But what we started doing, Ian, was really interesting, was every year, after 4 or 5 years when we were into it, we started culling the worst clients and the worst properties. So we'd look at the worst 10%, who costs us the most amount of headache and which owners treat us the worst. And then we'd get rid of them.
Yeah.
And it got to a point then. And so in 2012, I opened my own brokerage as a company. So we're celebrating 11 years this December. And we got to a point where I was like, we have about 80% of our book is set it and forget it. We don't, the owners trust us. The tenants are good. They're the right B class properties. And that allowed me the freedom to start looking into other business ventures, investing and things like that. But it took time. And again, I had to do this all by trial and error. If someone came to me as a coaching client and I was like, I'm going to help you build what I built, I would fast track them to the right people, the right places, and they would bypass all the crap that I had to go through to learn this. And I will tell you this, and I don't often pat myself on the shoulder, but you as another investor and those in the audience listening to this understand what I'm about to tell you. We made it through COVID, during the pandemic, with a 99 point, I think it was like 5+% collection rate.
Amazing.
We had 2 problem properties that we were adopted. So in other words, we took over management of somebody else's place tenant. Even then, we got them almost $30,000 in CAD/COM monies and eventually got them out. I had one tenant out of all the ones we managed that went down the route of alcoholism, unfortunately. And that was but like we were hearing the nightmare stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. And this is where that's when I knew I had really honed something special with my systems. But it took, here I am 20 some years in this. So it took me a good 10 plus years to really hone that system down. So,
I mean, to your point, this is why we're doing what we're doing on Flip Trader. That's why we created what we created here, because people, they want fast and smooth. And if you do it on your own, I mean, I don't care how smart you are going to make mistakes, and mistakes cost money, and mistakes are painful, and it just is what it is. And you can always learn from somebody who says, just don't put your foot right there when you walk down that section of the path. And just that little thing, it's kind of like you were talking about earlier. And I encourage all of my coaching clients and the people that I talk to in Flip Trader, it's the little tiny things that you put in place now that will get you the massive sustainable growth in the future. And that's one of our pillars, is a sustainable legacy. Not a legacy of just money, not a legacy of just, being at home with your kids, but a legacy that's sustainable in whatever you build and however you build it. It's got to be sustainable. You got to have a balanced life in there. It's another one of our pillars. But it's the little things that add up to support the foundation of the growth. And that's what you did. You took one little $300 at a time and started building. And then guess what? You broke something, or something broke, something got messed up, and you created a system or a process for it. Then you ran that formula and you broke it, and then you created, and then you broke it and you created, right? And that's how businesses grow. You don't just, unless you're like Mark Zuckerberg, I look at that business and I go, how the hell do you get it to be like that so fast? When you're 21 years old and you don't know anything, it's an anomaly.
Yeah, but I think back, again, if you look at our history, like Ben Franklin is my hero. I'm from Philadelphia, so he's like one of my big, mentors. Love reading about the guy, but it was like, man, everything was an invention because nothing existed.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Hey, how do we do this? Hey, man, nope. There was so much. And don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of room, but we often focus on the people that succeeded and made it to the top. And you're right, a Mark Zuckerberg, we talk about made, but how many places didn't? Even a MySpace rise and fall. And here's the thing, I'm going to be straight up with you. You can call Facebook Meta all you want or Instagram, but the reality is, I have lived through, and that is the age experience equation of going, yeah, where's Pan Am Airlines? They don't exist anymore. So there's restaurant chains that don't exist anymore. Major businesses don't. Netflix. I remember Netflix when Netflix was a disc you received in the mail. Okay.
Or at McDonald's.
So my point is like
Redbox was at McDonald's.
Redbox, yeah, Redbox, and Redbox still. But my point is, Netflix was originally a mail DVD program.
Right, I remember that.
And AOL was the giant. I mean, when you hear someone has an AOL email, you kind of snicker at it, right? Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So we act like this is forever, guys. And the reality is, if you look back in history, the Rockefeller name might live on, and that's a rarity. Or the Carnegie name might live on. That's a rarity. But rare is like a Ford family where Ford's been around for so long. But even they're facing their own pressures. Nothing endures but change. And I think that this idea, like if you look around right now to pop culture and you think like, who are all these famous people? I can assure you in 30, 40 years, most people will not remember them. In 80 years, they won't. Because if I asked you who was the film stars from 100 years ago, maybe a small portion of the audience would actually know who I'm talking about.
Right.
But that's the point. It's all here, and it's so temporal. That's why I said it's such a temporal issue. But you're right. We honed it down and honed it down and honed it down. And now I'm at a point in my life where it's like, and I've said this, Ian, and I've said this for a long time. I said, I have the rest of my life to make more money. And, I'll never get back the certain amount of time. And I think that is something that if I can share with the audience is that time is really your most valuable asset. The time that you get to spend with those you love is important. Money is good. I love money.
Of course. Who doesn't?
But it's just that in the end. It just creates a new set of problems that you have to solve. That's all.
Yeah. And you have to figure out how to manage it.
Yeah, but you're not going to feel different. You said it earlier about like I was waiting for the yacht to come in and for them to hand me my trophy. And what you realize is that success is the dangling carrot in front of the donkey. Right. You're always reaching for it, but it's not something you ever quite grasp.
Yeah.
And once you learn that, the trip I think becomes a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, I tell people, I've said it a lot on here. Flip Trader is the most fun that I've ever had building a business. And I've built a lot of businesses. I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of failure. I've built companies. I've built real estate teams. I've built, real estate investment companies, wholesale teams. Flip Trader is the most special. It's the one that actually lights me up. It's the one that I feel like is sustainable because I took a step back from all the other stuff that I was doing. I stepped back from my personal development coaching business and said, hey, I'm going to take my hands off the wheel for a second to see what shows up. And within that week that I said, all right, I'm not doing anything for the next month with my other business. I'm going to see what happens. And Flip Trader showed up that week, dude, that week. And so we just never know what we're in the way of, what we're the bottleneck of in our own lives, or what our properties, to keep it in the real estate realm. Sure. What our investments are now a bottleneck of because we bought them 5 years ago, or we bought them 10 years ago, and we still can't get out of them, and they're not cash flowing, and they're bottlenecking something else. So, you have to be really smart with your understanding of what you want for the future. And then I think, tell me what you think about this.
Sure.
Are you actually making some kind of impact on the world, or are you just looking to get passive income so you can get free to then go do this? Because I can tell you, and Chris can tell you, you can do both. You can have the family life you want, and you can have the money you want, and the income and the business. I run 5 businesses, and I spend an average of 5 hours a day with my children every day. Weekends are even more. 5 hours a day with my kids. And people are like, how the hell do you do that? I spend 20 minutes a night. I'm like, I make time for it. I build systems that
20 minutes.
Yeah, I
20
build
minutes.
systems that help me. I make the time because I cannot buy that time back.
You
Never
can't.
buy that time back.
I will tell you this, and I was when I first joined this networking group about 6 years ago, and I remember on a call and hearing someone who I actually thought was this was someone I looked up to. He was very good in the real estate industry, had built a team very quickly. And I think the line that stuck in my head was, I made $400,000 last year, and I haven't put my 3-year-old to bed in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, buddy, you got this all wrong. And, my father worked for CBS when I was in junior high school. My father climbed the corporate ladder. I don't begrudge him for what he did. It was a different generation coming up in the 60s and 70s of what expectations were on a single income household. But I never saw my father but the weekends for first and second grade. And it had a profound effect on me because he would leave for New York from Connecticut for something in the morning. He wouldn't get back till we were already in bed. So I'd see my father on the weekends, and Saturday was great, but Sunday he was miserable. And I didn't understand for years why he was such a bear Sunday afternoons, because the thought of having to get up and start that whole week over again just about drove him to the brink.
Yeah.
And so and then I watched my father get fired from that very same company in 1987. And I was a freshman. I think I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. And, what seemed like a very balanced life as a child, all of a sudden now was out of balance. My father's out of work. And I swore to myself 2 things. One, that whatever I did in life, I wanted to be there every day for my kids, morning and afternoon, just like you're talking about. And 2, I wanted to put myself in a position that no one could ever fire me and cause such disruption in my life.
Yeah. Or your family's life.
Or my family's life.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, and when we're talking about real estate, let's talk about real estate then. You have to be very clear on what your intentions are. Why are you getting involved in certain real estate investments? What is the strategy you want to use for that real estate investment? Is this something to build equity? Is it to build cash flow? Is it to build growth? Are you involved with other people? Are you doing it yourself? Do you have to require or rely on something that is out of your control, such as that I need to refi my way out of this property in X number of months or years? That's how I got caught into it. Great low interest rates in 04, 05, and then they were balloon notes because those were 5-year adjustables, which everybody was getting.
Same story, man.
Well, guess what? So there's the fear on my part. That's why I'm more hesitant. I'm more likely to say no to a deal than I am to say yes, because if it takes a bunch of decisions where you're like, well, if A, B, and C happen right, and D, E, and F work out just right, then I'm going to get what I want. I'm like, nope. No. So you have to tell me that if A through E, if all of it fails, can you still make money? Yes. Right. That's a good investment.
That's a good one. Yeah, I do. It's such great advice. A part of why Flip Trader was so attractive to me is because I have a certain set of skills that I'm an expert at, like building businesses and being a CEO and looking at numbers and building systems and building teams. And maybe I'm not as good. Like, I'm definitely an expert in real estate investing, but not that big of an expert. And that's not my biggest level talent. This stuff is. And so when Flip Trader came along, I thought, wow, there's guys way smarter than me doing the stuff that I'd like to do. So if I could apply my talent here, and then I can tag on with them on other stuff, and they can tag on to my talent, you know what I mean, over here, this is a good reciprocal relationship. And I did that because as I was thinking about rebuilding my real estate portfolio, because in 2019, I had a partner steal all the draw money out of an account, and it bankrupted that company, and it shut down dozens of deals that were active in renovation. And and then I, in an LLC, like, you're still responsible if your partner steals a shit ton of money. And he did. And my partner skipped town and left me with the bag. And I thought, okay, so I clearly don't want to do that again. However, I'm way smarter today because of those lessons that I learned. So I'm actually, as weird as it sounds, I'm very grateful for. I wouldn't be the man I am today or the position I am today without that really tough lesson. And it was like, I went to the bank, I saw the accounts, My signature had been forged, like that kind of, shady shit. And I came home and I thought, oh fuck, my life's over. Like my wife's 6 months pregnant. My daughter's like 4 years, almost 4 years old. And I thought everything that I've worked for, like it's all gone. It's all gone. Like how could I have let this happen? And dude, I said to my wife, I'm a very disciplined guy, but I don't know how to deal with the internal pain and panic that I feel right now.
Yeah.
But I will get this done. But I want you to know that I'm going to use alcohol to solve this problem in my life right now. And I'm going to do that for 2 weeks and then I'm going to stop. And I think, I think people who are listening, who maybe had an issue before, they're like, yeah, that doesn't happen. Well, it happens with me because I'm extremely disciplined. So I said to myself, all right, you got 2 weeks, do whatever the hell you want. And I still had a real estate business to run. Now I wasn't going out with clients. My team was running things. Then I just sat with myself and felt bad for myself and wallowed in self-pity. And I drank at night. I didn't drink during the day or anything, but I just drank at night. And that was unlike me. And at that Sunday, the 2 weeks Sunday, I was like, okay, it's over. Now get your shit together. What are you going to do about it? And I thought this time investing, let's figure out how I can partner where there's a really good trust factor, where there's control, where there's clarity, and where my talent is a big part of the equation, like a massive part, where mine was before, but not really when you're just like buying some houses. So I encourage people to do that. And kind of like you said, you take a much more conservative approach. So do I. But it's also an approach where I trade my talent for equity, or I trade my talent for time, or I trade my talent for money, whatever it might be. Like that's the lessons I learned. I trade my talent now.
It's true. And that's how I looked at it. I was just talking to an investor I've been working with for 8 years. And I was like, look, I can help you find some of these other properties. I'm less interested in making property management money. I'm more interested in getting a piece of the back end as a junior partner. I don't want to be part of any decisions. You don't have to tell me anything, but I'd rather sink some money into that long term because you know what you're doing. And that power of leverage. And here is another key factor I can share with you guys, is that there is this sort of incessant feeling and need that somehow you have to know and be able to do it all. And the reality is that that's not the necessary best use of your time. And I had a long, hard road learning that. So now, like, I'm less interested in being a real estate syndicator, but if I trust the syndicator, like someone I know has done well, I'd much rather be invested in there because they've got that talent skill.
Oh, totally. That's what I mean. Like,
so
you're doing it at a way higher level than me. So if I'm going to try and go out and raise capital and try and buy a hotel or a big multifamily, why not syndicate? Like I was talking to a good friend of mine, Mark Hinton, and he said, the smartest thing people can do today is find an incredible syndicator, an incredible fund that invests in real estate, who has a long track record of success, and you can understand their losses or whatever. And there's a massive amount of trust. That's the best thing you can do right now, because then you don't have to operate it. You don't have to do all those other jobs. You know what I mean?
It's again, I think people have to separate when you're looking at real estate investing. You have to ask yourself, are you trying to stroke your ego? Right. Is it about saying, look, all these properties I own, or what kind of properties I own? But I think listen, Google will tell you what the statistic is. I think sometime I heard like 75% of real estate investors, landlords in America, own, I think, 2 to 3 properties on average. It is, the idea is that every investor has, hundreds of doors. And the reality is that's actually not true.
No.
Most are partnered, husband, wife, or partnered teams that want to have some extra long-term growth. They end up getting 1, they get 2. And then somehow around 3, it's like, that's that manageable level mentally for them.
Right.
And by the way, this isn't just necessarily like, oh, these are doctors and lawyers. These are people who are fairly high net worth. But it's like a matter of comfort because they know what they're looking for. And I think that as an investor, they know what their goal is. They know what they're trying to achieve. And if it's simply like, I just want to be a bajillionaire, well, that's a great idea on paper.
Sure.
But that's not really a goal, because I can tell you, the studies have shown that after a certain 6 figures amount of money in the bank, your happiness level goes up. It only goes up incrementally, very, very incrementally. The more money you start to make. So I think knowing the target, go ahead.
I've got some questions in here I want to make sure that we get to before we jump here. Shoot, I missed them.
We were just too busy.
So one of them, Sophia was asking, if you had $100K right now, what would you do with it? And I think we just kind of answered that question. I'd put it with a great syndicator, honestly.
I would put it with a great syndicator, or I would put it in something like, if I wasn't going to put it into someone else's hands, if I had $100K, I would probably put that in something that had a good, solid, stable cash flow. Like if I really wanted to, I probably would not put it on something high risk. I'd probably park it somewhere, especially like a multi-unit. I'm a big fan of the 5 units or above because of the ability to refinance. I'd probably look out somewhere. If I couldn't do all that, that's exactly it. I'd probably split it into 250s or 425s and park it into four other syndications where I get equity, which is getting harder to find because most just want to pay you a piece of the back end. But I'd park it in something stable.
Yeah. I think I would go to an emerging market with short-term rental, and I'd split it up into gap funding and go get a hard money loan based on the property and the business plan. And I'd just buy 4 Airbnbs in, little condos somewhere in some, B-class market. Or I'd take 50 grand and invest it in real estate, and I'd take 50 grand and I'd go buy 3 cars cash at the auction and pop them on Turo, because Turo is incredible ROI. If you own the car, it's incredible ROI. I know that's not real estate, but
no, but I love
Turo.
The short term, then we started looking at, can we do properties with Turo on top of it? We're like, hey, what if we get a property, like a house with a nice barn that we could do both of the properties? And then what if we park a bunch of Teslas and a charging station that we could do? So it's thinking outside the box. But you said something I want to tack on real quick, which was find an emerging market. It's why I finally moved to Orlando. I'm in Southeast Pennsylvania. It's complete red oceans. There's a lot of New York and New Jersey money fighting for the same scraps.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I want to go where the growth is. And I think that was a difficult thing even for me to leap outside of. I want it to be within a 30-minute drive to listen. If it's in another state, I'm okay with it. Because if you go where there's good opportunities, like in the Kissimmee, Orlando, Florida area, or in the Gulf Shores, or in the Gatlinburg, those areas, there's already the system set up for you to buy turnkey opportunities.
Dude, Gatlinburg is out of control expensive. It's out of control. It's such a cool little town. But it is out of control. I was there last year. It's out of control.
Yeah. Well, then, that might be too red ocean at this point, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be ahead of the curve. Where's the next growth going to be?
Yeah. I mean, you're also in a very busy market in Orlando. I think it's like 10,000 short-term rentals or something crazy like that, right?
40,000.
40,000. Dude, that's insane.
And it's funny because I was with someone last night from our group, Steph Wu, and she said, hey, is it still a good time to invest down here? Like, are we oversaturated? I go, we have multiple theme parks. We have an expansion park at Universal coming out. We're an hour to Cape Canaveral. Like, we're not going, this isn't going anywhere, guys. Because if you look at Orlando as a city, it's tiny. It's a small city.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near expanded. We're nowhere near.
One more question, Chris. So what's the mindset of a leader? Can you become a successful leader over 50? The answer is yes. Period.
Yeah.
And what's your explanation on that one? And then name a couple good books that you're reading or that you've read that, have to do with real estate investing or have to do with mindset.
You can't put me on the call on that one. I'm reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Steps. I'm not currently reading. I am also reading Blue Oceans, which I think is an incredibly good concept book. If you want to be in real estate investing where others aren't, you should be reading Blue Oceans, because just because everyone's running to a market doesn't mean you should be running after it too. That gets very.
Who's that by?
I apologize, don't have that in front of me. But if you just type in Blue Ocean strategy,
go into the group and post links in there. Or just post it in there with the name of the books are. Yes.
Yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem. So honestly, here's the thing. I think once I got into my 40s and now in my 50s, I think becoming a good leader is actually easier, because a good leader isn't just telling you what to do. They're actually saying, follow me. Let me show you the way. And it's not all talk. I've actually skinned my knees and healed from it. And a good leader really does want the best for the people that they're working with. A good leader is not trying to squeeze talent out of someone that they're working with to benefit them. Really, it's about squeezing the best talent out of them for them to achieve their goals. And sometimes that means tough love, just like you said. Hey, you know what? I think you're making a mistake on this. Yeah. But the most humbling part, too, of being a good leader is extreme accountability to oneself. I do not like to make excuses anymore for if I screw something up. Yeah, there's no excuse. I just screwed that up. And I take full responsibility, especially for the people beneath me. A good leader will literally get on a call, and I just had this happen this week, and say, you know what? My staff may have done A and B wrong. Doesn't matter. The buck stops with me. That's why I'm calling you. I'm going to make it right. And that has won me back clients hand over. It's why I've had clients for 10 plus years.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I love that sentiment too. It's our culture, our society has become very blame attracted. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like I teach my kids, when you make a choice, whatever the result of that choice is, it's on you. No matter if someone else gets involved or someone else cut you off or someone else did this or said that, still you made that choice. And because I want to raise my children to not blame others. I want them to take ownership and accountability on themselves, on what they can control. Even there's plenty of stuff that they can't. So I love that, man. Well, dude, it's been a fast hour, buddy.
Listen, I really appreciate you again having me on the Flip Trader podcast. I do appreciate it. I hope your audience gets some value out of it. I'm sure they'll find ways to reach out and connect with me, but what you see is what you get. And I really appreciate a chance to talk to you guys. And you and I are definitely going to have to reconnect offline more often.
We will for sure, man. Where can people find your book?
So my book, and I'll just show you the cover real quick. This was my humorous take on self-help. It's called You Suck, Now Own It. And it is a very short read, but it really dives in a little bit on like some of the mistakes I made in my life. You can find that on Amazon if you really want. My website is askthebigguy.com. You can always find me there. And I'm a pretty easy guy. If you Google my name, you will find me. Feel free to ring me up. Let me know you heard me on the podcast. But I love sharing information. It's not all about money at this point in my life. A lot of it is about sharing knowledge, and that's the part I love. If I can help someone avoid some of the mistakes I made and launch them, that's the legacy I want to. That's the legacy I want to leave.
Totally agree with that, man. Well, dude, it's been great having you on here, and I know the Flip Trader family has definitely benefited from this. And if you're catching it at the end of this on live, make sure you go back and listen to the whole thing. It was really great value. And if you are listening on the actual podcast, like out in Spotify or iTunes world, and you are not yet a member of the Flip Trader community, join the other 41,000 people at this point who are in this community. And we have 6 hours of live free content every single week for you. No strings attached, unless you want them to be, which I'm sure I can attach some strings, but there are no strings attached. These are all people like Chris who say, I want to share. I want to share what I'm doing. I want to share what has made me successful, my failures, and I want to help somebody not make as many painful mistakes or cost me as much or whatever, as it did for me. So, yeah, dude, make sure that you go into this, this thread and make some comments in there and talk to the people in there. And we'll see you on Thursday for a training.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Have a great week, everyone.
All right, Flip Trader community. That's the episode. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here and being a part of this revolution, this evolution that we're building in the investment space, in the real estate investor education and training space. And we'll catch you on the next one.